Not our usual time slot, but very welcome, Rob England and Chery Wu. And I'm delighted to chat to you today about making a difference. And Chery, most probably not so foreign to you, but foreign most probably to Rob, and in a new market,
Mm,
and doing very exciting and very successful work over there.
mm,
So,
mm.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in a temporary setup today. As you can see, my background is not the usual red. So, can you guys hear me okay? Just checking. Okay, awesome. So, I suppose the first thing that I should say is teal unicorn. Why teal unicorn?
Mhm. We're known as Teal Unicorn. That's our brand. It's a brand that we adopted. I met Chery 6 years ago now, almost, isn't it? And so I was sort of in transition of thinking at the time, and so us working together as a team, it was a brand we took on. And so unicorn is language for organizations that do things that are indistinguishable from magic. So it's like the
Gotcha.
ultimate operating model for an organization. And teal is a word from Frederick Laloux's book, Reinventing Organizations, about a cultural color code. And teal is the highest level of culture that any organization has yet achieved, managed to get to. What would you add to that, Chery?
Oh, I think you have a wonderful answer. Yeah.
So that's us. We've been together for a long time now, and
Decades, yeah.
it feels like decades, 5 years. And I was working in IT, in DevOps and Agile, but Chery has no IT background whatsoever. So when I met Chery, she was just finishing her PhD and heading off to work in government, and I was like, "No, don't do that," and said, "Why don't we work together?" And so we worked out what Teal Unicorn would look like and how we could work together. And Chery has all this massive business and public policy background and this high profile in Vietnam. So combining that with some of the new ways of working that I was finding out about was like this perfect collision of the two things. And it just created this formula for, excuse me, Chery, but for a powerful and persuasive and eloquent woman to talk in native Vietnamese in Vietnam about these new ideas of ways of working from the West. So it was a real dynamite combination.
I mean, we say new ways of working, but Jerry, to a large extent, many of these more inclusive and community-based thinking is is for me at least a symptom of or a cultural reference to the Far East, where it's the individual is less important than the group.
Mm.
Mm.
So, I mean, what do you exactly now do in that market in Vietnam specifically?
You mean the new ways? What
Mm.
do I actually do?
Yeah,
Mm.
so
Uh
how do you help organizations to think about, life and business and ethics and meaning in a different way?
uh yeah, traditionally people think about doing business making the owners to be rich, right? But well, the whole idea that we brought in Vietnam is about, it's not only that is only the one kind of output rather than the whole purpose. The purpose is much make life better, work better, and we make it better result, and better society. So we talk a lot about treating people like human, like human is just not like a slave or in Vietnam, if you are familiar with the ideas of color, of La Lu's color, so it's more red than any other colors, right? People still treating their staff just not that good. So I just talk mostly it's about teaching them how to work with human and be nice to people. Mostly. Yeah.
I think to your point, Johan, about more collaborative cultures in the East, on one hand, that's true. And I think the Vietnamese, I mean, you can't generalize about people, right? But it's interesting. We do a game where you put a tarpaulin on the floor, two tarpaulins on the floor, and two groups of people, and you have to figure out how to turn the tarpaulin over without getting off the tarpaulin. And I have to give the game away that the secret is that you all get on one tarpaulin, you turn the other one over, and then you all get on. But when you start playing the game, people assume it's a race, and they all stay on their tarpaulin. Well, at least in the West they do. But when we play this in Vietnam, half the time the first thing they do is figure out that if they all collaborate, they can turn the tarpaulin over.
Yeah.
So they do tend to get to the answer quicker. So in that sense, there's a collaborative mindset. But at the same time, there is Confucianism, which says you must obey authority at all costs, and anyone who's designated authority, there's a very paternalistic, parent-oriented relationship, and bosses are bosses because they're bosses and don't challenge. That sort of pretty much cancels all that out. And then you've got this massive rise in prosperity in Vietnam since they finally recovered from the American War. And so in recent decades, they've gone all Friedmanist, that it's all about the money, right? And so you got those three things all at play, which means that you've got these bosses who sit there as Confucian bosses and use very red, power-centric, because I say so kind of management methods. They're not all. I mean, we've met some wonderful people too, right, Chery? But
yeah.
But Kam Lai was a good example of somebody who was taught that a boss needs to be shouty and tell people what to do. And she's the sweetest, nicest person and didn't like being like that, but that's what she thought her boss was.
Yeah, so there's this, I suppose, cultural tension of a hierarchical and still very paternalistic, is that right, society.
It is a bit stronger in Vietnam than anywhere else. I tell people that to a New Zealander, Vietnam feels about as foreign as the USA does.
Okay.
Right? So everyone expects you to say Vietnam is this incredibly strange place, but really it's not. It's different. Like I find the USA pretty weird, but it's and I probably would find South Africa pretty strange too, right? But it's no more of a leap than that. People are people wherever you go, and so there are these local colors to the culture, but it doesn't make it that different compared to any other cultural step around the world, I think.
Yeah, at the moment we are working for the two bank, one in New Zealand and one in Vietnam. I don't see any different. Maybe and the results that we got in Vietnam is maybe even better than in New Zealand. I would say.
Definitely. So there is a certain, again, to cultural differences, there does seem to be a certain open-mindedness, and I think, and we did a paper for the Business Agility Institute on this, which is in their quarterly magazine called Emergence. We did a paper on us, and I went through there a whole series of hypotheses about what it might be that's making Chery so successful. And one of my hypotheses is because Chery, that in my objective opinion, as somebody who's married to her, I think she's really special. And I mean, I've worked with a lot of consultants over many years, and she does seem to command a great deal of credibility and respect in the Vietnamese community. And so I think that's one reason, but I think they are also naturally maybe a little more open to, I don't know whether it's cultural cringe like we have in New Zealand. We have this cultural cringe that it must be good because it came from Europe, right? Maybe in Vietnam there's a little bit of that, which because it's coming from this hairy hippie from somewhere else, I don't know. But I do think some of it's down to just who Chery is, and I think some of it is down to a culture of being interested in ideas, being curious, being playful, I think, even willing to give it a go.
And I mean, if I look at the videos and the photos on your website, this idea of being able to get things done as a team, collaboratively, how does that come across? I mean, and how do you get, come to think of it, pretty much most of the world is red. so just thinking about the one specific market as red is not that, it's not that foreign.
No, that's what when Chery's saying about the banks. The bank that I was working with here is very punitive disciplinary culture, and a huge proportion of the management are athletic white men, you know. And so it's not that different.
Okay, so if it's not that different, then let's take the conversation in a slightly different direction. How do you get an organization, and I'm focusing maybe now far too much on Lalo from Red. I can't remember, was it red, orange, brown? And
Red,
teal.
amber, orange, green, teal.
And then,
red, amber, orange, green, teal. Yeah.
Wasn't there a brown also somewhere?
No. No.
Not. Okay.
Amber. It depends who you ask. There are various different ones. So I think spiral dynamics there is, but Lalu there isn't, or something.
Okay. Yeah, I just, was it the week before last? Oh no, last week on APMG's podcast. My last comments was that people should stop reading Frederick Taylor and start reading Frederick Lalo.
Amen.
Yeah. So how do you get an organization from red to teal? And have you done it? Have you been able to actually create organizations or help organizations get there?
We've been doing quite well with helping the organization moving from red to not teal yet, but green. I would say, I would say green. I was lucky that I always get the support from the CEO. So they just sell the ideas that as long as you make people happy, then they will get better result. And just focus on people, then they will look after your clients, your customers, and money will come as a result. So if we think it that way, we don't. If we focus on the money won't come. But if we focus on people, including clients, customer, and staff, then money will come. So they, as long as they get the results, the money, then they happy. So but get the CEO and the executive understand about it. It's a long way. I feel like it's easier to work with the to make this to help the SME CEOs to understand the concept and to make a decision to go forward. But for the big corporation like bank, or it is a little bit harder. So the point we try to make is that to get the small proof point, to prove that it works, the ideas work. And so as long as they see the result, you gain the trust, and then you can go further and bigger. That's how we work. Yep.
Okay, and that first conversation, because I mean, my experience is that it's really difficult to actually have that first conversation with somebody that's got the authority to make things happen within the organization.
Yeah.
And it seems that you guys have cracked the code. You're able to get to the right people to have the right conversations.
So it's not easy, and it's not come like directly. Normally it go around, like for example, we developed business agility communities in Vietnam, and I also run a parenting organization. It's where we share the idea about the new way of being parent.
Okay.
So it come around. So people who are interested in being good parents knows about us, and so from that they know, they come to my personal account in like Facebook mostly, and then the other groups that I ran. So it's normally it's come around, and people start from small. They may join the training or whatever it is, and after that they see the result and they're happy, and they go higher and higher and higher. So at the moment, several bank the contacting me after the very first few ones. So I mean, it's always not direct. So since you get to this executive level of one big organization, so it could be much easier to have you know people heard a good thing about you,
Yes.
then they invite you. Yep.
I would say we don't do any sales. We don't do any
don't.
door knocking, and we don't do any marketing except social media. So Chery originally joined a group which was Vietnamese CEOs, most of whom were SME and quite young because it was a Facebook group. But there were how many thousands of them, right?
50 something thousand.
And so that was our first over to Vietnam. Was Chery was writing for that group, and then Chery created a group, the Agile Manager, based on our book, that has grown and grown and grown, and created a family group, and that channel has become a side channel to get people knowing Chery. But through the Agile Manager group and through the family group and through this other CEO group and through Chery's networks as well, Chery does have some good senior people networks in Vietnam. We've marketed by Chery writing stuff in social media, and that's the only marketing. And then those people approach Chery. They go, well, this sounds kind of cool.
Wow.
And then we run some public training as well. Chery runs public training on agile management. And so some people have heard about it through the social media, come to that, and then that has turned into them going, hey, what can we do at my organization? Is that a fair summary, Chery?
Yep. Yep.
So there's two books that's is it co-written by the two of you? That's both been translated, or that's, I suppose, written originally in Vietnamese and then translated into English.
No. It's from English to Vietnamese, and
actually, so far. But now Chery's writing a book in Vietnamese, which we will. Well, she's written one book on family that will translate back into English, and she's writing one on agile enterprise in Vietnamese that will translate. So generally, I write in English, and Chery helps me. But these Vietnamese ones, is Chery writing the bulk of it.
Yeah. And the training interactions are based around these books?
Yeah. Yeah, the ideas around, but we put a lot of practicals and coaching around it. So it's more like it's not only training the theory, but it's we try to get the results. So we do coaching more
Mhm.
to prove that it works, right? Training is just like reading book, better than a little bit better than reading book. But if you don't have you from the ideas from the theory to the practice is a long way. So
Okay.
I often coach people how to get there. Yeah.
And quite fast.
Okay.
Cherry's really good at challenging people and saying, well, this week go away and do this. I mean, and to an individual, like talking to each individual,
Yes.
what are you dealing with? Well, you should go and do this, and setting them challenges to, or one young fella, you said, what did you say to him? He's got 6 weeks to turn his company around, Eric.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
I said I give you 3 months to
3 months.
turn to to make your very red organizations become at least or green. And it's surprise case that he make it work after 2 months. So it's
Well,
from very hierarchy and very complicated KPI system into flat, no managers at all organization. And it's also there was people working in silo, just silo, and they don't have cross function cross skills. But after 2 months everyone can do everything, just they train each other and they become great very fast.
and
Mm,
okay, so becoming green is obviously from a human perspective great because it's much better to work in an organization like that.
mm,
But you said at the beginning that people buy into it because they can see it on the bottom line. And
mm.
and and what are the results on the bottom line?
Oh, can I share some
Slides.
slides at this point?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Let me just
I think I can.
stop sharing my screen, and then you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of slides here. Window, PowerPoint slideshow, share. There we go. So we have done a presentation on this somewhere, so I have got them loaded in case we want to
We
talk to
can
this.
see. Oh yeah.
So this was one of our bigger clients and one of our early ones as well. I'm probably wearing one of their shirts, am I, Chery? I think this is one of theirs. And the clothing company and working with them. So several clothing companies. One smaller clothing company working with lingerie, making lingerie. Production up 90% year on year with the same number of employees and in the middle of a COVID crisis.
Okay.
Revenue up 115% over the year and profit up 320%. And then in the big one I was talking about, Chery did a lot of work around bureaucracy and got cost and time of approvals for things down 80%. And we were only working with them for 6 months.
Yep.
We did a lot of other things with them, but that's one number out of them. One of the bank branches, like Chery said, create proof points. So she went into one particular regional area of the bank. They call a branch. It's not one single building. It's one area. And they had sales up 158% over 10 weeks by spending 10 weeks changing how they work. Right?
10 weeks. That's quite quick.
Hell yeah. They met their annual quota within, was it 1 month or 2 months or something, right?
2 months, yes.
And became the top performing branch in the bank.
Wow.
That young fellow that Chery challenged to turn his company around, he sells spa equipment for beauty spas, not spa bars, beauty spas. And their sales were up 5 times over 5 months. 500% increase in sales over 5 months. They were really floundering when they came to Chery and got them into profit as an organization.
Okay, but I have to ask. So what is, if there is a recipe, what's the recipe? What's the
The
approach
secret
that you
sauce.
follow? What is the secret sauce? Because hell yeah, that looks good.
There's more of it. There's lots more, right? There's lots more. Yeah.
So
What's the secret
how do
sauce?
you, I mean, you just engage with an organization. What is it? What is the process that you go through?
The process.
Okay, or not process.
Not process.
Uh,
It differs every time, of course. There are generic patterns which we put on our website, but it's so secret that we put it on our website. Like all good secrets, it's on the internet. But it varies a bit, doesn't it, Chery? But basically, what would you say are the basic patterns? What do you want me? You should talk to it, not me.
of course, I don't have any process. I think it's normally I would first give them some ideas about what does good look like, some training in general about how a good managers and leaders should behave, you know, and I also talk about uh, self-organized team,
Okay,
make people give people power to do their work. You hire people and you pay for them, so let them free to do their work. And also mostly it's about approval and empowerment. If there's too strict on what people can do, and then nothing happen. And also it's I think I realized that in Vietnam most of the organization, no matter how small or big, they are still stick with the KPIs, very traditional KPIs for individual performance, and it's killed the culture. It
okay,
actually killed the culture because everyone have their own personal goal to hit, and they don't care about general staff or organization or others. So I think that's a huge barrier that I always leave it from the beginning. As it we train that how to measure performance is not by the individual but by group, or even
yes,
by entire organization. So we don't know, we always know that we do it better or worse, right? But nobody can complete, no individual can complete the work from the end to end work. So you
yeah,
can't measure the person, but you can measure the whole group or the whole organization.
Mm.
That's how I put it. So one by one, there's so many things, but I think it's I yeah the obstacle is individual performance management. Mm.
So um, some of the patterns that I see in Chery in what she's saying there are that actually you do a bit of basic training of theory,
Mm.
especially to some inner sort of champions,
Mm.
but you don't lead with theory. You lead with tell me what your problems are, and we'll talk about what your solutions are.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah,
And Chery will facilitate, but we always say to people we don't know the answers. When we first arrived in the big clothing company, they were like, "What do you know about manufacturing clothing?" And we said nothing. And they're like, what are you here for? It was very funny. So we're forever saying, stop asking us for the answers. The
Mm.
answers are for you to find. But so Chery is really good at facilitating, really good at challenging, really good at listening and leading them towards solutions. And just sort of, some people need to know the theory, but mostly, and the other key thing that we talk about is if you listen to what she's saying, she targets the management. The managers are frankly, the problem. The managers, to be nice about it, the managers are the key. If we can unlock the managers.
yeah,
Yeah. And also I think the reason that we get that fast result is more like we use a lot of open management methods, like open space technologies or lean coffee, or all that the open, just make it open. So the message that I always try to deliver is that nobody own the problems. nobody own problems. If the manager or the leader think that they own the problems and they will just do solve it themselves, or they think that it is a solution, that they will just go like top down, and people underneath, they don't understand why they have to do the thing they asked for and asked to, and also they don't really get it. So we normally open it. So every problem we throw it on the table. It's everyone own the problem, and now we talk about the solution, what's the best. And we own the, if people who do the work know the problems, understand it, know the solution, and they actually create the solution, they will implement it, they
Yeah.
will do it the best way. Because all the boss and leader, the traditional people, old school people, they always think that they know better than people who do the work. And in
Whereas in
fact
Yeah.
they
fact
not, they
they know
don't,
less, right? They know
they know,
less.
Yes.
they always know less.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've proven over time that the further away that you are from the work being done, the less likely you are to know what the solution to a problem is.
Yep.
But in the
So,
old school command and control system, you're
yes.
expected to know the answers.
Yeah.
People will come up the hierarchy and say, "Tell us what to do, oh master." You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And that's
also
why it's
people.
so, I suppose, so weird for a consultant to say, I don't know, let's talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Yeah, I said to people, to my clients, that I have no idea about what you guys doing, but I know what does an good organization look like, and
Yeah.
I know what the good people, leaders and managers look like, and I also know what is procedure, what does good look like. I know that,
Yeah.
and it's clear that I will help you to find the answer from your people, not from me. And so
And I
far
think
it's
that's a key. Find the
yep.
answer from your people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the other day we organized one big event for like several hundred people in one big huge organization, and the boss of that, just one department. Yeah, just one department is huge. It's about 300 people, and they make the strategy for like what should we develop in the future, at least for 1 year strategy for 1 year. So I said to him that you shouldn't show, you shouldn't you shouldn't do it, because how can you know? How can you know? And let's gather people and we all do it together, and then
Yeah.
here's the result. Actually, this one is not
This is halfway
just
through
an
your story. I
example.
realized I was putting the wrong one up, but yeah.
Mm-mm. It's
This
just,
is a
yeah,
different client. Yeah.
it's a different client, just something more like that. We did it in one day, and we have a whole picture of what the the values of our organization, the strategy, the goal, and what we will deliver to customer, what value we bring to the customer, what should we do with our people, and all that, what
Skill
um,
sets, mix of
skill set and
skills.
all that. So we actually create even an up down to the every single project that they are doing, and what should they improve, or finish what and do what, and until campaign of each group. So it's just clear, like the whole pictures that we call OBR.
Mm.
Yeah.
And this
So
particular one here was a bit smaller. It was 50 people, and it was one day, and they co-created all of this with Chery's guidance.
yeah,
Wow.
and the boss, most of all the boss, just wow, because they said, someone said they didn't contribute anything today, but their staff bring up with the ideas that even them they can't think of. That's what they say.
Okay. So
Yeah.
a lot of these things that you actually do in organizations is based around lean principles. sounds like, including working visually.
Visual and
It
value
seems
stream
like,
mapping. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's a value stream map buried in that very complicated picture I just showed.
yeah,
We use mixes of agile, lean, humanocracy, servant leadership, transformational leadership, a whole lot of sources of ideas that all
Complex systems.
complex system theory.
okay.
It's a real hodgepodge, as it should be, right? We should draw from
But I
Absolutely.
hardly,
Yeah.
to be honest, I hardly talking about theory, because people who do the work, they don't need to. They don't actually
Yeah.
care. I just explain when I need to, but normally just, they just like you live in a building, right? You know your space and you make use of make the most of your space. You don't need anything or much about the structure or underneath what you have in on basement or thing like that. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So
You don't need to know how the plumbing works, right?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think that's maybe a problem with many consultants, me included, is we're really
Too much
interested
theory, right?
we're really interested in the plumbing.
Yeah.
And you need
Yeah.
to be, because somebody needs to, when Chery's guiding them, or when we're guiding them, then we need to say, I think you should probably go in that direction, or
Yes.
I'm not sure that's a good idea. So someone has to have that knowledge.
Mm.
But as they're thinking about how they should work, sometimes they need a smattering, like we did sort of teach a bit of lean principles sometimes to people who are trying to work out a particular problem, give them a bit of theoretical training. It's not like it's completely forbidden, but we don't just lead and go, right, everyone needs to do the foundation. It's as some organizations do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it can sometimes do more harm than good, because our theory tends to be very structured,
Yeah.
or presented as a process or an old school thinking. Yeah.
And
These are
when
the
people,
headings, and this is what you need to do. And
lots of people ask me like, oh, do you know these methodologies, or you know this and that? I said, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't talk about it, literally, because when if you have like 1,000 methodologies or tools in your hand, why you have to care? Yeah, why you have to care? You just use it whenever you need to. It's not the main thing. And whenever I need to teach people Kanban, I do teach people Kanban. Whenever I need to teach people how to just organize one meeting like lean coffee, I do teach, but I don't bring anything to like make it like so polish it and protect it and use it by all means. No, I don't. I just use it for whenever
it
it's
makes
suit.
me think of the term fit for purpose, and fit for
Yeah.
use.
Yep.
So I take your point that somebody needs to know it, Rob. Yeah. I maybe just have to learn to want to teach at least.
Exactly. I was talking to a group of consultants today, and I was talking about ITIL, ITIL, that many of your listeners will know, and how I used to have a rule for myself that any document I wrote for clients, I wasn't allowed to even use the word ITIL until at least the second page.
Okay.
I used to really drive myself, don't call it ITIL, we used to say, remember? Right, just it's buried in there somewhere as the theoretical justification, but it's not the lead. I would always try and lead with talking about their problem and their solution, and eventually say, oh, by the way, ITIL says it's a good idea. Would be buried in there somewhere.
I like your rule. In the past, when we had a slightly larger consulting team, we also had a rule that a proposal cannot be longer than 2 pages, and a report cannot be longer than 8 pages.
I'd still have the same rule. You still can't mention it till the second page.
Yeah, but my rules now, even in the report and I show you my report. No, but I can't because it's client's report.
Mm. Yeah.
My rule is no more than one page, just one
Okay.
page. My proposals one page, my reports one page, no more than two.
I love it because people don't read it in any case.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I just
One person
visualize
reads it. Some junior gets assigned to read it. Come and tell me whether this is any good, says the boss. And no one else reads it. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
It's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so strange that, the symptoms that we see within organizations are universal. I mean, I've worked on 4 continents, and every time you engage with a customer, the first thing they say is, "But you don't understand. Our situation is truly unique."
All our clients are the same because our all think they're different.
Yes. Exactly. It's the first word they say that, oh, it might not work here because we are so unique. I said, yes, all of our clients, they are unique. Nobody's like it.
And yet we are all unique, but not in the way that we think we're unique. Yeah. So because rightly, as you said, Chery, the issue of complex systems. There's so much of what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that's actually not our making.
Yeah.
And if all of that stuff is the same, how can we be so unique?
Exactly.
And deep in what we do is something, talking about cultural differences, cultural flavors. There's something about the Australasians, the Kiwis, and especially the Aussies, I'm half Aussie, that just don't take any bullshit. And I think it's a bit common with South Africa too, right? And just cut the crap and get, what's all this? So stripping away all the theater, all the stuff that's just actually not real, and getting straight. So we don't know. We're not going to get up because all consultants are pretending they know.
Yeah.
So they're not going to pretend. We don't know that. That's what. And some of the other things Chery is talking about are all about, like the one-page report. You're not going to read this, so therefore I'm not going to write it. It's just going right back to the cut the bullshit, go back to what's real.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is in DevOps and is in Agile and is in Lean, but not articulated in that Aussie way. But that resonates for me.
I sent millions dollars proposal. I just say, yes, the proposal. So what are you going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. It's 1 pages. I don't make it longer because I know the longer you wrote, the longer you write, the more complicated and the harder for them to understand. I said, if you can, I just visualize it. Here's a bullet point. Visualize.
We had a jump back to New Zealand for a moment. Chery and I went in to see an old colleague of mine who said, Rob, I'm at a new company and we're doing this DevOps thing. And can you come in and talk to us? So, Chery and I went in to talk to them. And when we got there, it turned out they were like, well, can you do us a proposal for what the first 3 months will look like and what it's going to cost? And I said, no. And they're like, what? Well, I've no idea what the first 3 months is going to look like because we'll work with you, we'll iterate, we'll experiment, we'll change what we're doing, we'll work our way forward. It's like, well, no, they won't do it all. I need something I can compare with the others. And he didn't explicitly say that, but I knew that. Something I could take to management, right? And I was like, well, I'm not going to give you a fixed price. That's the first thing. I'll just give you hours per month at a certain price. But the second thing is I have no idea what we're going to do. And he was like, oh, and I said, look, well, I don't do this anymore. You know it's bullshit, and I know it's bullshit. You know I'll make it up. You know what will happen will be nothing like what I wrote. You'll just need it for the little ritual of getting the boss to agree. And so, no. And they said, well, what am I supposed to take to management? I said, take me to management, and I'll convince them.
Love it.
And he's like, let me get back to you, Rob. Right. So as we walked out, I said to Chery, it's win-win, because if he goes for that, I want to work for him. If he doesn't go for that, I don't.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but that's a hard call to make. Yeah,
I have to confess, I have written proposals in the past, because the only way to get in there was to write a proposal, and they just needed to tick the box, and they knew, and I knew that it was just to get in the door, and that things were going to change within weeks. But I've done it just so that we could get through the silly little dance, and I have to confess I've done it.
Yeah, I think we've all have done it, but I mean, I'm exactly the same. And I often smile when people say, when I say to you, so what do you do? He says, no, I'm a consultant. It's genuine. So tell me about the work that you do. And then I listen to it and says, no, you're a contractor. Your customer tells you what to do. You don't tell them what to do, or give them advice about what they need to do.
That's the difference. That's the difference. Yeah.
So I just want to get back to this issue of long proposals. I mean, I've got this saying that it's extracted from I think ideas from Russell Brunson most probably. That says ambiguity or brings inertia, or no, complexity brings inertia. That's it. Yeah. So the more complex you make the thing, the more difficult it's going to be to actually make a decision.
Yeah.
And it's more important to make a decision, even if it's the wrong decision, and quickly find out it's the wrong decision.
Exactly.
And at least to wonder about what you're going to do.
All work is experiment. You don't know until you do something. So for God's sake, do something.
Yeah. So and if it's not experiment, then you need to automate.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, I admire your chutzpah and braveness in approaching the thing that way. I must say, sometimes I've got the bravery to do it that way, but yeah, as you say, sometimes I play with the bullshit.
This woman is fearless, man.
Someone's called me publicly on the Facebook group. It's about 50,000 CEO and managers. They publicly call me the dangerous woman who, no, exactly, dangerous and toxic people who brought the very dangerous idea to harm the Vietnamese business community. They call me publicly.
Okay, so to harm the business community, but the money is rolling in.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you've made it when people are abusing you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I absolutely love it. So what is next for you guys? I mean, Vietnam is obviously a big market, but are you gonna be looking at doing interesting things and being toxic in other markets soon?
I wish I have chance to go to South Africa, but I'm not quite sure that we can make that much impact to your culture, because we don't understand much about your culture.
Yeah, but you know, I find over the years, if you know and understand what doesn't work in general, and if you're willing to listen, I mean, I've worked in very different environments, and most of the time is what's successful. Sometimes I've made some big mistakes. Also, the first time I worked in the Middle East, I got somebody fired, and to this day I feel really sorry for this girl, because she was so well-meaning and she really helped me. But the result was that she lost her job, and that's a terrible thing.
It is. I think we could make a difference in other places, but our formula is so special in Vietnam that we will have a lot of work there. But we've got another book in the works, which I was hoping to publish this week. I think will probably be next week.
Awesome.
which is about planning or not planning in a VUCA world. And so we very much have visions of where we want to be in 3 to 5 years, and we have plans for the next 2 to 3 months. But in between that, there's just scenarios. There's a whole lot of scenarios, none of which, they're all just floating around. And so what will we be doing in a year's time?
You don't know.
Yeah. That's exciting. Love it. Yeah, I think if I speak to some other people that I know, that would make them cringe.
It's just being realistic. Again, it's just being realistic to what is the world really like, and COVID has made it beautifully clear to us all about planning, and so has Ukraine.
Yeah.
Right? So your plans are actually just scenarios, right?
How the world could have changed in 2.5 years' time.
Totally.
Scary thought, but exciting times. And it
so
seems
we think a lot about how to survive and thrive in that, right? That's the thing that we're learning about at the moment.
Okay, so you say there's lots of scenarios. So when you think about these scenarios, is it casual or is it in a structured, planned fashion?
Semi-structured. I mean, we've got a document with some of them in. A lot of it is just us talking to each other, but we do record and think about them and write them down. Things like moving to Vietnam is a scenario. Losing everything and going and living in our famous caravan is a scenario. Getting wildly rich and living in our caravan is another scenario.
And not one of them is bad. I love them all.
yeah, that's right. And I don't know, finding a whole new direction to go in with product is another scenario. And you can't forecast that. You can't, it's like.
But I must admit, I mean, if you say to me product, if I'm desperate and I have to.
We struggle to define product, but we pivot a lot, right? The family stuff that Chery does started out being just a marketing thing, turned into being a feeling of public service in Vietnam, and then turned into being a channel for a few introductions. Out of the thousands and thousands that Chery's changing their personal lives, a few people also turning into leads for management training.
Okay.
So that was a real pivot. I mean, there's no way we planned that, any of that.
Yeah, so, I think, and turn ourselves into parenting book authors at big surprise.
It's a bestseller in Vietnam. It's making it won't make us rich, but it's making us thousands of dollars. It's a big seller.
Yeah.
So I suppose the trick is to be open and sensitive enough to know when these mysterious coincidences happens to us.
Serendipity, man.
Yeah, and synchronicity. Yeah, I'm a big Boom fan.
And there is that saying that the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes, that's true.
So there is a lot of preparation. There's a lot of thinking about possible scenarios and what could we be doing now to be ready. Chery's just got her passport organized, and I'm organizing my 5-year paperwork, for Vietnam, and we bought the caravan, and I'm getting it working just so it's there. I mean, there's a lot of work, groundwork, and learning about this, learning about that, soaking up lots of knowledge, never knowing which one's going to open something up. So the harder you work, the luckier you get, I think.
And it's also there's one thing that I learned, that we don't know what the future like, but we always can do the best at the moment. Do the best and prepare for it, like learn and do things. And one thing that I think our life is changing so much is in a very unexpected, not, I mean, in a good way. There's path that we don't plan at all, like being someone that who are talking about parenting or something like out of our control, out of our areas, that something that lead to the good thing. So from the beginning, we just give, do thing for people, whatever good we think we can offer to people, and everything will come around, even we don't plan for it. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I learned.
So sowing and reaping.
Totally.
And yeah, maybe just to somebody out listening there are seasons for these things. You don't do them at the same time.
Yeah,
So if you put good out there in the world, it tends to come back.
yeah, yeah. Even you don't expect them to come back. You don't do it because you wait for something good to happen to you,
Yes.
but just do it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a very important principle. If you do something because you expect something from it, the only thing that you can expect is not what you expected.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Guys, this is coming up to an hour now, and I promised the audience, the first few podcasts that I did, I think the first one was 3.5 hours, and people said to me, no, please, you're not Joe Rogan.
Yeah, yeah.
It was awesome to meet you formally, Chery. Rob,
Thank you.
right, as always, a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys again. And well, all that I can say is, Godspeed for all of the seeds that you've planted.
Thank you. Thank you. We might be talking to you from Vietnam next time. So
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
that is one scenario I hope is, well, we're fairly serious that we'll get back there on business. We might even go there, live for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You don't know,
Well, that
right?
would be really exciting.
Or maybe we will see you in South Africa. That's my
Maybe,
dream.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the world is opening up for travel again, so maybe we will bump into each other somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, sure.
It's hoping.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it, and good luck. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's a big pleasure.
Thank
Okay,
you.
guys. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and